the chisel right and was timing his strikes too, waiting for HMS Forget-Me-Not to crest a wave, then striking down with his hammer before the ship lunged into a trough. It was all about timing. That was the trick. He took out another 5 or 6 large chunks of ice before it happened. 1 minute, his hammer was raised to strike. The next, the deck went from under him and he hit his back on something, his head on something else. Then he was falling, somersaulting downwards. Instinctively, Frank let go of his hammer and chisel, hoping they wouldn't spin into the air and take a lump out of him. Then he felt a sudden shock of cold and wet, took in a lungful of freezing, salty seawater while trying to move his arms. But his heavy overcoat made that impossible, and really Frank had no idea what was up and what was down, where the surface of the sea was, where the sky was. But one thing he did now know. He was overboard, in the sea. Frank felt terror, his heart pounding inside his chest, his throat gasping for air. Submerged beneath the water, Frank could feel his overcoat and boots becoming heavier and heavier, weighing him down, like there was a hand coming from the depths of the Norwegian sea to drag him to his death. As he fought for every breath, for his life, Frank could feel the cold the sailors had told him about when a man went overboard, a violent shivering, a numbness, the slowing of the heart. It was a quick death, they had said, not a terrible death, so long as you just gave into it. Soon, Frank's exhaustion overcame him, and he stopped fighting. Chapter 2. Plymouth, 1930s. During the years before they signed their papers to join the Royal Navy, Frank, Joseph, and Stephen often found themselves on Plymouth Hoe, a piece of high land that overlooked Plymouth Sound and the Atlantic Ocean beyond. The 3 sailors had been friends all their lives. They had lived on the same street and attended school together on the edge of the Devonport docks. Despite his mum dying when he was just 5, Joseph had done well at school and passed his 11+ to get into grammar school, unlike the other 2. But all 3 knew and loved the ships that they saw coming and going from the docks, the uniforms of the sailors, and had no doubts that one day they too would find themselves at sea. Out of the 3 of them, Frank was the most devoted to the Royal Navy. He was one of the many Plymouthians who had lost family at sea. But this didn't put him off signing up. If anything, it made him even more determined to serve. Often, he would go alone to Plymouth Hoe when his 2 friends weren't able to play out. Without a dad at home and with a mum who had 2 jobs, one on the docks and another in a public house nearby, Frank had a lot of time to himself. Sitting at the foot of the statue of Sir Francis Drake, he would watch the ships of the Royal Navy coming and going through Plymouth Sound. He could identify any ship almost as soon as it appeared on the horizon. HMS Hood, HMS Norfolk. He knew them all. He even came to know the names of the ocean liners that took wealthy people on great adventures around the world, to America, to India, Australia even. When he was 10, Frank's mum had given him a sketchbook that his father had written and drawn in when he was a child growing up on the same streets. The sketchbook had a hardback cover and was navy blue. Inside, there were profiles of the great ships his dad had seen sail in and out of Plymouth. As he grew older, Frank would sit on the same spot his dad was supposed to have sat on, up on Plymouth Hoe, recording the names and shapes of today's fleet in the same way. Frank was careful to use the same type of pencil, style of shading, and form of words as his dad. In this way, he felt as if he was spending time with the father he had never met. When Royal Navy vessels left Plymouth, Frank would often be joined on the Hoe by families. Young women and children, usually, waving wildly as the ships passed through Plymouth Sound, then faded into the distance, over the horizon, out to sea. When the ship was gone, the children would walk back into town with their mothers, shoulders slumped. Frank knew their story. He had seen these events play out 100 times. The woman's husband and children's father was going to sea to serve the king. They might not see him for months. They might not see him ever again, if they were unlucky. And Frank had been unlucky.